animals. I don't believe in extincting any species. I do know that you have to have a control on them, because if you don't, boy, they'll take over, and then nobody can raise a crop or raise livestock, and different animals, they're killers, you know. And the beaver they do a lot of damage. I leave the ones alone that aren't doing any damage, you know.
We're off to skin the beaver. Jake makes a living the same way as Bridger would have done, and as you watch him, you can see that he's every bit the expert.
See, you only make one cut straight on through when you're skinning a beaver.
His craftsmanship is born out of years of practice. It's exactly this level of knowledge that the mountain men relied upon.
It's good meat. The mountain men, if they were short on meat, they ate all beaver meat, but they always liked to mix elk and deer and stuff like that, moose, and once in a while butchered a bear for the fat. Nice beaver.
Watching Jake, it's hard to believe that he's actually 90 years old.
I just got a little ways to go here, and then I'll put it on a hoop, just like the mountain men did in the early days. The only difference, we use iron now and they used willows. Here.
On Bridger's very first expedition, a colleague of his called Hugh Glass had a run-in with a grizzly bear that nearly cost him his life. He was mauled and left for dead, with all but the bare minimum of his possessions.
Stranded alone in the wilderness and horribly injured, Hugh Glass worked miracles that became a legend. Finding his razor in his possibles bag, he used it to create sparks to get a fire going. Something like...
Hammer them in and hook them on there, see? That's the way we hoop them. Well, you gotta have it just taut. If you have it too tight, that'll kind of warp, and sometimes it'll rip these out. So you gotta have a little bit loose there. When that's dry, that'll be solid, you know. And so you got to know the right tension. Same way when you're building a drum, you got to have it about that loose, because if you make it plumb tight, it'll bust while it's drying. The Indians killed white men that way. They sewed wet rawhide around their head and staked them out on an anthill, and when that shrunk, why then their brain swelled up and they died. Wouldn't that be a hell of a way to die? I'd rather die from a jealous husband or something like that.
That should get us going, shouldn't it?
The old cowboys used to. See that helps? Yep. See how it works? And if the cowboys were riding where there's a lot of dry land, they'd let their horse drink out of their hat. We'll just let that go for now.
What have we got in there?
Peach cobbler and beaver stew.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the cobbler?
That's the stew.
We don't want to burn it.
Let's have a look.
No,
Oh, look at that.
That's the stew.
There you go, Jake.
Good, yeah.
Right,
Got a good scald on it. A good flavor to it.
Jim Bridger was a renowned storyteller. Jake is no different. Well, Jake, what about when you were a young man?
Yeah, I've been clocked 2 or 3 different times where I walked 40 miles in one day. One of them, I got to tell you the story about this. I got done early with my hunters, and John Bradford had a hunting camp up on Togety Pass, and there was quite a group of Mormons came in there, and they had a guy from a BYU football player. They was telling what a hell of a tough guy he was and how far he could walk. And John Bradford knew me real well, you know. He said, well, you guys can brag your man up all you want. He'll never outwalk that guy right there. He pointed to me, you know. And, oh, they said, you want to make a bet? And John said, yeah, what? How much you want to bet? And there were several $100 bet, you know. And so we left it. In the dark, we had a flashlight, and I walked over to Cottonwood Bench, which was 20 miles, and boy, it was right on my butt all the way. And coming out, we were about halfway out, and I looked over my shoulder, and I couldn't see him. So I walked back, and there he was sitting by a little stream, and had his shoes off, and he had blisters on his feet. And he said, you win. He said, you go on, I'll hobble on in. And you know, I dog trotted on out and saddled 2 horses and went back and got them, you know. so old John Bradford, he said, see, I told you guys, there wasn't nobody going to outwalk Jake.
Like Jake, Jim Bridger spent his lifetime exploring this area. Every valley might be the key to finding a way through to the west. Following in his footsteps, I can see how difficult it must have been to find a way through for the wagon trains. It would have been impossible without the support of the local inhabitants, the Shoshone, a tribe with an incredibly strong tradition of helping fellow travellers. Leo, a leading member of the tribe, is making jerky from elk meat in the traditional way. How do you do your jerky? What's your method?
What I do is cut all the way through this without cutting my fingers.
Yep.
And you just gotta kind of have a feel. These knives are just razor sharp.
Yep.
But we want this meat just as thin as we could get it.
So you're starting to unroll it, aren't you?
Yeah, we want it as big and as thin as we could get it.
These bits here.
I remember way at the head of this canyon up on top here, it was some of the first times I remember making dry meat.
Yeah.
My dad was up there, and that's all we did is he'd kill an elk or something, and there's no refrigeration up there at all, so we just jerkied it all.
Once the meat is sliced thinly enough, you hang it onto a simple drying rack and season it.
Yep. Here's one of these ones that you done. I'm gonna have to. That's a handful there.